Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our second edition of the 3 and 30 series with our special guest today, Mike Blaine from SUNY Plattsburgh. Before we get going, I just want to go over some housekeeping things. If you all could just please make sure your mics are muted during this. And the only other thing I'm going to ask is, because we're recording this, unless you want people to stare at you the whole time if they're looking at a recording, I ask that you turn your video screens off. And then at the end, if you want to ask a question, you could turn your screen back on, ask the question, or type it in the comments. So with that said, I'm going to kick it over to Joey LaFranca.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. I'm really happy to be doing the second week of Section 7's 3 and 30, and really excited to be talking with Plattsburgh State men's basketball coach Mike Blaine. And before we get going into some of the takeaways from today, Mike, how has the almost a full year of COVID-19 and trying to be a basketball coach, what has that all been like?
Yeah, it's Joey. I appreciate you asking, and Matt, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here and share with some folks in the North Country. It's been a bit of an odd year to say the least. Trying to recruit pretty much exclusively virtually vis-a-vis film and analyzing things electronically as best we're able. I've been working shifts over in the dorms, helping to try to lift the spirits of some of the students that are coming back to campus and have to isolate for a couple days, while their contact tracing is going on. So it's been unusual and busy, but we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel here. We're cautiously optimistic that we're going to be able to have some workouts with our guys in the spring, and hopefully keeping our fingers crossed that we're moving forward in a positive direction here very, very soon.
So before we get into some of your takeaways from today, I just wanted to take the time to explain, if people don't know exactly what's going on yet, since this just is our second episode. Every guest that we have on, we're asking them to come on with three type of takeaways that they really want to stress to everybody watching, whether it be live right now or even after this is recorded and people can watch afterward. So each guest is going to come on with three main talking points they want to convey to everyone. And it's going to kind of go around exactly what exactly their profession is. So in this case, Coach Blaine's obviously a basketball coach, so his takeaways are going to kind of be garnered toward that. But just wanted to kind of explain that a little bit before we get going a little bit more. But with that in mind, Mike, just give me your first takeaway, and then we will kind of just continue rock and rolling from there.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Joey. My three takeaways are going to be kind of geared toward the recruiting process in general for high school and younger prospective student athletes that are looking to compete at the collegiate level. And the first takeaway is actually three parts, but the first piece of the puzzle we say is that coaches are looking at three things when they evaluate you as a prospective member of a college program. First and foremost, your character, then academic ability, and then finally athletic ability. Obviously, we want to make sure that all coaches, certainly I'm coming from a basketball perspective, but I've got great relationships with all the different coaches in our department: soccer, hockey, lacrosse, baseball, softball, on and on. All the coaches are, if they're looking to bring you into their program, they want to make sure that you are a young man, a young lady of high character, that you're doing the right things. Doing the right things in the community, making good decisions, that they know that they can count on you and trust you to do what we're going to ask you to do as a program. So that there's not going to be distractions away from the field, away from the court, away from the classroom. And so first and foremost, we're looking for high character. So I'll ask coaches, I'll ask teachers, I'll ask guidance counselors, is this student, does they show up on time for meetings and practices? Have there been any disciplinary issues in the community? Anything that we would need to worry about ourselves bringing them into our program? The second piece of the puzzle, the academic puzzle, is the academic part. And first and foremost, you're looking, can this student be admitted into our institution? And there are a number of different admissions requirements from institution to institution, from division to division. The National JUCO Association has different admissions requirements than NAIA, than NCAA Division III, NCAA Division II, USCAA, NCAA Division I. The whatever governing body of the school that the school that you're looking at belongs to, they're going to have unique requirements for an opportunity to compete at that level. And then also each individual school is going to have its own admissions requirements based on the dynamic of that school. So I think it goes without saying, the more successful you can be in the classroom, the greater the number of options that you're going to be able to provide yourself for success at the collegiate level. We'll screen transcripts all the time, and we end up having to tell folks, hey, you know what, I don't think it's going to work out here. A lot of times just to get in the door, but then also you don't want to be from a college coach perspective. I don't want to be recruiting a student who I know is it's going to be a constant struggle for them just to make it through the entire time. We're looking for students that we think are going to have an ability to thrive in our environment. And then the last piece that we're looking at is as it comes to prospective recruits is obviously the athletic ability. And that comes in two parts. Is we're looking at your overall skill within your sport. How do you hit? What's your shooting percentage? Various what your blocking looks like, whatever that may be for whatever sports you're looking into, and then also your general overall athleticism. I think we all know that we've all competed against athletes that were highly athletic but maybe not super skilled in their area, or athletes that were very, very skilled but maybe didn't have elite level athleticism. And so we have to make sure that as coaches we're looking to balance both of those pieces as we look for the overall athletics ability of a student athlete, not only in the present time, but then also how do those tools, how do those abilities project? Do we think project in the next year, 2 years, 3 years? Does a student look like they're possibly growing? Did they come into a sport late and there's a chance to develop some more skill here? Are they hitting a growth spurt or whatever it may be? So so we look at that combination of inherent athleticism with sport-specific skill to combine that athletics. So again, we're looking for character, we're looking for academics, and we're looking for athletic ability. An amalgam of those three when we consider our prospective student athletes. That'd be our first takeaway.
Those are all great things for, I feel like, every single student athlete, whether or not it be basketball or anything that they're interested in. So I think those are some really great talking points. Now, a part of this as well is, in addition to your takeaways, just want to kind of interject with some other type of questions just to get, for people to get to know you a little bit. But you're relatively new to the North Country still, and this, you completed your first year. You're kind of in your second year, albeit a weird second year. But what made you want to come to Plattsburgh? What made you want to be the Plattsburgh State men's basketball coach? And what have been some of your takeaways from your first year and a half here?
Yeah, I've been very, very fortunate. This is my 18th year of college coaching, even though this year is not coaching specific.
Right.
I've worked at all kinds of institutions, small private schools, national service academies, Ivy League, historically black college, large public universities, on and on and on. And what I've looked for, the places I've been most excited to be a part of, was places like Plattsburgh. When I looked at Plattsburgh, I saw great people that are committed to the mission of the university and are invested in helping young people be successful. Again, personally, successful academically and successful athletically. And that was really exciting for me to see that, from afar, obviously watching the success that Coach Curl had with men's basketball, men's and women's ice hockey over the years, so many of the sports at Plattsburgh, men's and women's soccer. You've got an ability to be highly successful at Plattsburgh, but you've got an ability to do it with a wide range of people. There's not one type of person that's going to excel at Plattsburgh. I think SUNY Plattsburgh is an institution that's designed for everyone to be successful in their own unique way. And so it was exciting for me to be able to mesh people from maybe different backgrounds, different walks of life, and help them be successful personally, successful academically, and obviously continue the tremendous tradition of success, specifically within the men's basketball program, but in general with the entire athletics department. It's very, very exciting for me because that doesn't happen a whole lot of places. And so I'm thrilled to be here, and we're hoping to get things moving forward in a positive direction very quickly.
What do you think of the cold temperatures up here?
You know what? I tell you what. After a decade in various parts of upstate New York, I'm starting to get used to it. We had a prospect on campus on Friday, and the mom asked me why I was walking around with a short sleeve shirt on, basically, and I said, hey, after 4 years in Ithaca at Cornell University and 5 years in Buffalo at Medaille College, and now a year and a half almost in Plattsburgh, you start to get used to these sort of things. So I'm loving it. It's a little colder than what we're used to, but we're excited to be here. We love the area, and we're hoping we'll get a little warmth and get to be outside a little bit more here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt about it. So let's get to your second takeaway. What's the second one?
Yeah, I think so often young student athletes look and compare themselves against their peers or what their ability are at the high school level, and that's not necessarily the same as what your ability might be at the college level. Just like, in any professional sport, you're going to see, we always take it to the next step with guys. You'll see great college players maybe not have tremendous success in the NBA or the NFL or NHL, whatever it may be. Every level you go up, there's a funneling, a narrowing of the talent, and so you may be one of the best players on your high school team. You may be the best player on your high school team. You may be the best player in the section, but you go to the college level, your roster is going to be filled with teammates who are also the best in their school or their area or their region. And so you have to understand that your only opportunity to compare yourself usually is with those around you, but you have to understand the bigger picture of really, as you look at yourself as a prospective student athlete, you are comparing yourselves with others in your state, in your in your region, sometimes even nationally, depending on the institution and their recruiting scope. And so just understand that the constant level of excellence that any college program is going to attract is going to be that much more different and that much more specific. There's I think 4% of all college athlete or high school athletes go on to play college athletics at any level, at least in the NCAA. And so, if you've got 100 women's soccer players, 4 of them are going to go play in the NCAA, roughly speaking. And you might be one of those 4. That's great. But you might be number 5, and that's great too. That means you're an outstanding, exceptional high school player, but that doesn't always translate as much as people think. You just naturally think, I excelled in high school. I've had that conversation with guys I've recruited. Not at Plattsburgh, obviously, because we haven't had those guys on the floor, but at other stops along the way. Well, coach, you recruited me, so I just thought I was going to play right away, and so there's an adjustment process from taking that step from high school to college, because you're going in 1 year, you're going from playing 15, 16, 17-year-olds to the next year. If you're at a 4-year school, you're playing 20, 21, 22, sometimes even older student athletes, and you yourself are only 6 months older than you were, when you finished your high school season. So that understanding, so much of the frustration that we find with our new student athletes is thinking that they'll just be able to continue business as usual. And you have to understand that the bar is being raised across the board, from in that transition from high school ability to collegiate, to ability to excel collegiately.
Now, I know that a lot of Section 7 athletes can relate to this, and you can give an interesting perspective from the college side of things. With the COVID pandemic and what it's done it limited the state playoffs last year as far as basketball is concerned, and it limited a lot of sports, obviously, in the winter as well as the spring, and even in the fall and into this winter. From your perspective, how can you kind of relate to I'm sure the frustration, the anxiousness to get back out on the court, from your perspective, but just also for any sport, just get back out there and being able to compete? How have you dealt with, obviously, probably that frustration, that kind of, not anxiety in a bad way, but kind of just that itch to get back out there and be able to do stuff? How have you tried to cope with that?
Yeah, I think the important thing is to have empathy for those, for all people involved. Basically, I don't think there's not a single decision maker on our campus that doesn't want all of our student athletes to be playing, full speed as today, honestly, I think if they could snap, if Dr. Agnetti could snap his fingers and we'd be at practice right now, he would love to do that. But unfortunately, that's just not, that's not feasible right now for the health and safety and wellness of our student athletes. And the other part we have to understand is that we're just a small piece of this puzzle, and what might, what our student athletes have done a great job is understanding is, while numbers in Plattsburgh might be low, that doesn't mean, numbers in Oneonta are low, or numbers in Oswego are low, or other teams that we might come across. And so, we have to have empathy for the fact that others are not necessarily in the same, situation that we are. And sometimes, we have to put our, like any team, we have to maybe put our own individual wishes behind that of the larger group and the greater good. I think it's important, so easy to say, well, the common refrain is just let them play. And we all want to play. I can't even begin to, I'll try to empathize with those that are seniors this year. I've never been in that position as a student athlete, and I certainly, you guys all have the most empathy I could possibly muster for the difficult situation. I think it's just important to understand that nobody involved in athletics doesn't want to play. We just have to make sure that we're going about it as safely as we possibly can be. Sometimes that looks differently, in some parts of the country than in others. And that's a frustrating, it's a frustrating seat to be in. I certainly understand. I want to be coaching our guys right now. All of our guys want to be playing right now. But we have to try to trust that those that are in, decision-making positions are looking at the best for the individual, but also are looking at the best for the greater good. And we're going to try to do what we can to help as many people as possible, but, in our process.
Yeah, I feel a lot of people feel that same way. So I feel like that's great for people to hear from your perspective. Now, give us that final takeaway, and then we'll get into some other things as well before we wrap this up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want, just as a quick sidebar on that one little note that we talked about.
Sure.
I don't want any prospective student athlete that's concerned about their ability to get evaluated. Certainly the seniors I know that may have aspirations to play at the next level. I don't think there's any college coach in the country that's not going to understand that, there's different, the different things are going on in different places in the country. No one's going to get the fact that, that they're not playing this year held against them. That leaves you to get evaluated on the information that is at hand, maybe what your grades are, what your past film might look like, but nobody's going to scratch somebody off their list just because, oh, well, they're not playing a high school season right now, or they're only playing however many games. That's not what's going to be, what's going to strike anybody on or off anybody's list, basically. I think all of our college coaches, and I've talked to my colleagues that have a greater sense of perspective of that different student athletes in different parts of the country or different parts of a state have their own burdens and challenges to face. So that being said, my last takeaway that I would encourage student athletes that are looking to compete at the collegiate level is understand that a common refrain I hear as a coach, both with our own guys, sometimes when they're frustrated about their opportunities, or on the recruiting trail with prospective students is, well, I'm as good as that person. I'm as good as him. I'm just as good as her. And if you are trying as a prospective student athlete to maximize your recruitment possibilities at the collegiate level, it can't be I'm as good as. It has to be I am better than. And you have to make it so abundantly clear that you are better than somebody else in the conference, anybody else in the district, anybody, whatever it may be, is you put yourself on as elite a pedestal as possible. So often, students will come and they'll say, oh, I can play with those guys. Well, we don't want, from a college coach's standpoint, we're not looking for prospects as good as what we have. We're looking for a student athlete that's going to help separate us from our competition, that's going to raise our bar even higher. There may be some teams, with larger rosters that might be able to afford, okay, she looks like a Plattsburgh level player. He looks like a Plattsburgh level player. But most of the time, at least from a basketball perspective, we're looking for somebody maybe perhaps a cut above that which we already have. And you have to look at it that way from a recruiting standpoint. And also, once you step onto a college roster, you have to look at it that way of, I can't be as good as my teammates. I need to be better than my teammates, because, that teammate that I'm as good, quote unquote, as good as, well, he maybe knows the terminology because he's been there for 2 years, has been lifting, weights, and is more physically ready to compete, or more able to put into practice the coach's game plan, or knows the terminology and the approach backwards and forwards. So understand that as a recruit, and then also as an incoming college athlete, you have to, you want the mindset to be not, well, I'm as good as. No, it's I am going to be better than, and I'm going to make it so abundantly clear that I am better than the other student you might be considering for my spot, the other teammate that plays the same position as I do, and make it your motivation to clearly exhibit, a superior ability to perform in the classroom, in the community, and most importantly on the court. And if you've got the mindset that I will be better than those I'm competing against, then you give yourself the best opportunity to take advantage of any resources or choices that are coming your way.
And with that, I think that's a perfect final takeaway. With that, I'll kick it back to Matt real quick and open it up to questions for Coach Blaine that there might possibly be. And if nobody has any questions, I certainly have other questions that I can ask, but I want to give this time to anybody here in the meeting who wants to ask some questions right now.
Sure. Thanks, guys. So anybody that's on here, I encourage you to, you can use the chat feature on here. There's a hand raise. You can raise your hand. We have time if you want to share your screen and ask a question in person, you can do that.
Yes, I certainly hope folks are chiming in. We'll feel confident enough to chime in with their questions, because again, I want to be a resource for all the student athletes and coaches and administrators that may have jumped on. So please feel free to fire away.
And in the meantime, is there a question?
Well, I was just going to ask one too.
Sure.
Coach Blaine, is there any sort of like minimum SAT, ACT scores that you're looking for at the SUNY level?
Well, unfortunately, just in the last 6 months or so, SUNY Plattsburgh has actually gone to test optional. So what we're looking at is primarily the high school transcript, and we're looking at how you did in your courses, the rigor of those courses. Certainly, if you want to add your SAT or ACT score as supplemental material for consideration, that's certainly encouraged. But one thing that I think is very, very important to recognize, especially maybe for our younger student athletes that might be looking at, and wanting to learn how to set themselves up, is that transcript starts in your 9th grade. So many times I'll get, coach, I'm really turning my grades around in senior year. Well, that's great and that's wonderful, but that doesn't erase maybe what you did as a 9th grader or a 10th grader. Certainly a positive trend is always appreciated, but you can't just gloss over a year or two where you were not meeting the standard of that particular institution. And so it's important, especially for our young student athletes, to understand that those classes in 9th grade and 10th grade are going to be looked at with the same level of scrutiny as those in 11th and 12th grade.
Perfect. In the meantime, I'll just ask some questions. If are there any that are in, Matt?
Not at the moment, but
okay, perfect. Well, this is why I have a job, that I ask questions. But I mean, Coach, I wanted to ask you another thing, and we've discussed it in the past, but you talked about it briefly as far as recruiting and how that process goes. How has that been during the pandemic? I can picture you sitting at your office, lights off, only the computer light is on, you're just watching film at a rapid rate. But how different has the recruitment process been this year compared to other years?
Yeah, my office, my home, my phone, random tweets or DMs. It's been very, very different. I think with the 2021 class, for those that haven't been able to play this year or anytime recently, again, we'll get information on a questionnaire. Any prospect that we get a name or reaches out to us with interest, we'll have them fill out our questionnaire. But that's just kind of the start of the conversation. Then I immediately ask for a transcript that I'll then screen with our admissions liaison, Jessica Spertus, who does a tremendous job for us, and she'll give us a sense of the likelihood, not a guarantee, but the likelihood of admission at SUNY Plattsburgh. And if we feel like a student has a good likelihood of being admitted, then I'll typically ask for game film. And a highlight film is great. I think that's a lot of young people these days have these great companies that have the music and the background and the whole 9 yards. A highlight film is great, but I tell guys all the time, I have. Ordinarily, I would say Hakeem Olajuwon, but if I put a highlight tape, you'd think I'm Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic on a low block, and that wasn't the case for me coming out of high school. So I like to see full game film. I'll take a look at a highlight clip to kind of whet the appetite, but usually what I'm looking for is a full game. I want to see guys, and young ladies, I'm sure, make mistakes and do good things, and how do they respond when things aren't going well? Play offense, play defense. What do they act like on a sideline if they're taken out of the game? And you can't see all those things from a highlight tape. But in the COVID realm, I think I tweeted about it a few months ago. If you have your transcript, SATs and ACT scores, highlight film, and a game film ready to go, if you have those four things at the ready upon the request of any college coach, that's enough to make an assessment. Ideally, do we want to be seeing people play live? Absolutely. But if I know what your grades are, your test scores are, and a chance to take a deep dive of your most recent film, then I have everything at my disposal to make the best possible evaluation I can. Obviously, it's not perfect. For those that I'm looking at film from a year ago, I'm trying to extrapolate a little bit and see how the improvement curve is looking. But again, transcript, test scores, highlight film, full game film, that's enough for me. And so for those that have some of that or all of that, try to check all four of those boxes. For those, obviously, I'm sure it's coaches or moms or dads or grandmas or aunts or uncles, whoever's filming your game. Be sure to thank that person, because that's, especially this year now more than ever, that is absolutely critical to have as much game film and as recent game film as you possibly can.
And I think one of the interesting things from the initial part of your answer there was nothing really starts before the grades are analyzed. You can't really get into those next steps from evaluation from your coaching standpoint until the grades are analyzed. So I think that's a very important takeaway from all of that process.
Yeah, that's burned me a couple times in the past where I've gotten excited or about a prospect that I saw, and maybe I talked to his high school coach and he said, "Oh yeah, coach, so and so's a good student." Well, good student can have a wide range of definitions. Good student could mean everything from 4.0 Dean's List honor roll, high honor roll, to so and so's never been ineligible. Depending on how you look at it, a good student can be defined a lot of different ways, basically. So yeah, that for me, I try to get especially now, I try to get the transcript as quick as we can. Sometimes we may see a prospect in a tournament or a showcase first, or in a high school game first, and then I go back and get the transcript. But usually we try to make sure that those two are conjoined as quickly as we can.
One final thing that I also wanted to ask you was, now as part of the recruitment process, wherever you go, I know you were able to check out some Section 7 games last year. And in addition to just recruiting, looking for potential talent, you have the opportunity to just enjoy basketball as well. Just enjoy watching a basketball game. And I'm sure some people in Section 7 would be interested from just what have you enjoyed from watching Section 7 basketball games? What have been some of your main takeaways from that?
Yeah, I think we've got some passionate coaches in the section. I remember sitting with you at sectional semifinals
Yep.
on Wednesday night. Back in February, and
Yep. You helped me with my
coaches.
stat sheet at one point.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you've got good coaches here. People that are trying to help young people succeed again, personally, academically, and athletically, and that have given so much of themselves in the service of student athletes. And so I think we've got a passionate coaching base, and I think that the community appreciates the effort that young people, young student athletes, like those on this call, put forth, to compete. It's a difficult thing to do at any level, to balance your studies and the time commitment of participating in athletics or any other extracurricular activity. So, I've been impressed with, just the quality and the care given by the coaches that I've come across, and, the effort and commitment by the student athletes, in the section has been a joy to watch. And I'm hoping that some of the young talent that I've seen continues to grow and develop and mature and improve and take those steps forward to hopefully potentially put themselves in position to compete at the collegiate level. Ideally for us at Plattsburgh State, and
Yeah.
if not else, I'm always rooting for folks from the area to succeed wherever they go.
I could not agree with that more. And with that being said, Matt, I will kick it back over to you for any other housekeeping things, any questions or anything else that you need to add before we kind of wrap this up.
I think I just want to thank you two so much, and thanks, Coach Blaine, for doing this. And what I will do as well when we send out the recording, I'll put your email address out there. Obviously, you guys know that you can go on the SUNY Plattsburgh website and find the information for Coach Blaine on there. So once again, thanks so much, and we'll tease next week's guest will be our own local Section 7 collegiate athlete, came back and coached. She's now part of the section executive committee. It's going to be Jess Barnhart from Northern Adirondack. So we look forward to her next week. So with that said, thank you all, and I'm going to stop recording and hope you all have a good night.